This is the grave of my friend, Mike Green. Mike Green, Cadillac style. He served in Vietnam, died in 2015, which on the date of this video, it's 3.5 years ago. And here he is. This is the cemetery. I think it's called the Arizona National Memorial Cemetery. And I believe this is all for veterans. So this is kind of in North Phoenix. I want to tell a story that's very personal for me, and it's about Mike, how I met Mike, and God is in the story. I try not to be too religious on my YouTube channel, but I got to keep it real and at least tell one story about a prayer that I prayed and how it had to do with Mike. And I've never, over the years, I've never told the story that well. And maybe I can do a better job this time. So the year was 2010. It was like summer. It was summer 2010. I was living in Buena Vista, Colorado. And at the time, I had my normal car, my Honda Civic. And I also had a 1964 Cadillac. And I love old cars. I'm a big fan of them. Anyway, I had a 64 Cadillac. But I'm not very good at working on them or anything like that. And the short story is my finances were just a little tight, I remember. And my Cadillac it was like starting, but it wouldn't keep running. There was something going on with the engine. Something just needed to be tweaked. And I remember thinking, all right, I don't have the money to fix this. I don't want to put any money into this car right now. And big old cars are definitely money sucking, things. So anyway, I remember I prayed to God, and I really meant it. I was like, God, will you please help me? Like, will you send somebody, like, help me find someone that will work on it, for free, maybe just a friend or some friend I don't have yet, something like that. I was like, please, because I don't want to put money into this car. And 2 or 3 days later, I'm at a car show. Buena Vista, Colorado has a car show every year on the 4th of July weekend or wherever it lands. Anyway, there's one Cadillac in the car show, and it's a 1959 Cadillac. So I'm looking at the car and admiring it, and it was one of those things where I tried to find the owner, and I just said, hey, this is a beautiful Cadillac. I own a 64. And his eyes kind of lit up. And he was like, yeah? And he said, me and my wife, we have 3 1964 Cadillacs. And he said, I tinker with them all the time. I told him where I lived, and his eyes lit up even more. He said, you know what? I know where you live. I drive by your house all the time. I see your 64 out there. I've been meaning to maybe stop by. Anyway, it turns out that was Mike Green. Mike Green. So my friend Mike, he lived a half a mile from me, Mike and his wife Jo. And he had 2 houses, one in Buena Vista, Colorado, and another. Joe had the house in Mesa. So anyway, all 3 of their 64 Cadillacs were sitting in Mesa at the time. So anyway, Mike loves to tinker with cars. So we quickly became friends, and he said, oh, sure, I'll tinker with your car. I'll look at it, because I told him it wasn't running that well. And within it was like 2 days later, there was like a morning where it was like 7:30 in the morning, and Mike would always wake up early, and I heard him, I heard him outside tinkering with my car, because I told him, I said, the doors are unlocked, the key is in the ashtray, and there was Mike working on my car, and it was such an answer to prayer. It was like, oh my gosh, God, you answered my prayer. Here's a guy gladly working on my car for free. Plus, He and his wife had 3 64 Cadillacs, and he had a 59 Cadillac, you know, and a 57. He had so many old cars. He was my hero with that. Anyway, so I was like stunned. And that was how the friendship with Mike Green began. It was like July 2010, and he had all these old cars, and I mean, he had a house with 5 to 10 acres, and he had all these cars that he saved up, a 68 Pontiac Grand Prix, and an old Lincoln Continental, and a bunch of Cadillacs, and I'm forgetting all his cars, but his crown jewel was a 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham. So anyway, for 4.5 years, we were really good friends. He helped me with my 64. Unfortunately, I had to sell my 64 a couple of years later, which is sad, but that's the story of Mike Green. There's so much more to say about Mike, and but let me just say, yeah, I don't know. I'm just visiting his grave right now, and you know, that's my story about Mike. I do believe God answers prayer. I know it's a very complicated issue, and there's so many issues talking about God and religion and spirituality and how the world came about. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that just because you pray something, you get it, or, you know, and I'm not going to get into all the details, but this is like one. I have a bunch of stories of stunning examples of God answering my prayers, but here's one where Mike Green, God gave me Mike Green to, you know, with the whole 64 Cadillac that I had, this boat, this massive sedan, this light blue Cadillac sedan. So anyway, I'm thankful to God that he gave me Mike. And oh, Mike, it's good to see you. So rest in peace. And I guess I'll just stop there. Thanks for watching and listening. Cadillac style. His brother put that. His brother put that because, anyway, Mike loved Cadillacs. He worked at a Cadillac dealership. So that's the story behind the Cadillac style. I love it. That's just so perfect. So, all right.